Welcome back to RGR Football. This is the Chiefs channel that I, Ryan Tracy, run with my buddies Dan and Danilo. We are working on getting you every aspect of how the NFL sees the Chiefs and what the Chiefs are doing to the NFL. Quite frankly, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the like, the sub, and the bell notification so you know what we do. Today is the Aftermath show, what I call By the Numbers, and it's how we take a look at what the Chiefs did statistically versus the rest of the league. This is part analytics, part raw numbers, part just my evaluation on the things that really were key to how they got the win. This was a very, very unique week in the way that the game was postponed. There was all kinds of questions about how they were going to do things. And then when the game actually lifted off, it was what they weren't doing. And that is really what brings us to the forefront of where they are against the Patriots. Much like they went out and dominated the Ravens. That's a matchup that they had the advantage of. The Patriots came back and did the same thing to them. The defense stymied Patrick Mahomes and his ability to try to hit the intermediate and deep routes, had to bring everything back to the forefront. We're going to take a look at the film tomorrow as well as later in the week. Dan's going to do some as well. And then we'll have the game plan video for you once again before we get to the next game against the Raiders. And then Danilo will have the Tailgate Kingdom corner for you. So getting into it now, as the top of the show, the most important stat is one that I track every week, and this is the offense's output. This is yards per play, and what you see here is they fell back quite dramatically. As dramatic as the increase was against the Baltimore Ravens, the fallback was just as dramatic, losing that 1 point that they had gained. And so when you track it, the two games that they've had the worst output of the season so far were the Los Angeles Chargers and against those Patriots. Two teams that played them in either a 3-high zone in that cover 3 with some interesting things underneath like the Chargers did, or a combination that we saw against the Patriots. And I'm going to have to decipher in the film room exactly what those combinations were. But overall, it was emphasizing the coverage over the pass rush. They still got a couple of things done, but that's really what stymied them. At 5.9 yards per carry, or per play, that is, that's still a significant output, but it's not what we've seen from this offense in years past. We can break it down further when we start to look at first half versus second half and making the adjustments, and things definitely turned around from there. I'm not even going to show you the first half number because it's not going to make you happy. So we'll move on to the second stat that I think's really the ultimate about whether you're getting your job done or not. And that is how they get things done on their drives. And this is another stat that took a pretty significant step back. We've seen them average 10 possessions per game so far this season. And they've steadily dropped as defenses have come around about trying to limit them to the deep plays, to the intermediate plays even, to be quite frank. The key thing is scoring on only 4 of your 10 possessions is not good enough to win most weeks. And yes, I know you're all doing the math and saying, wait a minute, they scored 26 points. The other was on a defensive touchdown, the interception returned by Tyrann Mathieu. And that really changes the scope when you think about what the victory is versus what the offense actually put out. It's a little bit concerning that they're not able to get as much done against a team that wasn't rushing them, that I felt you really had the advantage on in athleticism in terms of the pass catchers, and they had to get a little bit more creative than I think they ever meant to. But at the end of the day, Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick, puts out a good game plan, and has guys that can execute it. And I think eventually they came around and the offense got clicking at least enough to get the win, and that is what matters at the end of the day. Number one stat overall is W's. And that brings us to what the rookie group was able to do for this team. And it was about even though L'Jarius Sneed did not play in this game. You got a little bit more uptick from Deshaun Wharton. You got a little bit more uptick from Willie Gay. And as a class, this group ended up posting 139 snaps from the rookie group, just a tick down from what they did the week prior. Now, what this also shows you is the distribution, and that is specifically the offensive and special team snaps versus the rest, which are the defensive. Clearly, this is a defensive class. You're going to have more defensive snaps, but I got a couple of questions the last couple of weeks about what these colors are breaking down. That is it, offense versus defense in terms of percentage of where those snaps are coming from in this particular graphic. Now, as we look forward, that's something that I think the return of L'Jarius Sneed in a few weeks, you'd hope that it's another 6 or so, should alleviate some of that and should really help tick that back up. That leads us into the big defensive number that I always watch, and that's how much pressure you're getting on the quarterback. Very similar in terms of what it did in relation to the two quarterbacks. And it was two different quarterbacks, quite honestly, about giving up pressure. One of those you can certainly chalk up to a bad decision on that of Brian Hoyer. Another that you can certainly say that Taco Charlton made a heck of a play. That are two ends of the spectrum that really illustrate the night that the Chiefs had. Their pressure rate fell off here against what is a smart team, coming down 5% to 38 overall. But that also has to go against a Patriots line that was a little bit under the weather, didn't have all of their starters, had some issues early. And I would have liked to honestly see more pressure in terms of efficiency versus how many times they got a quarterback that really shouldn't have been prepared to play. That was a team that really has been making their living on Cam Newton and what he's able to do to diversify the offense. And when you get a little more one-dimensional like you see with Hoyer and Stidham, I think that pressure rate should have been better. But Steve Spagnuolo decided to go with a four-man rush quite often. He blitzed sporadically, but not consistently. And so I think he was happy with the coverage as well. And at the end of the day, once again, if that's enough to get pressure and get you the W, that's where you got to go. And here's the big plus. This is the first green we've seen on the screen to this point. And that's because the Chiefs defense finally figured themselves out. And they stopped missing tackles. They dropped their number another 5 from the week against the Ravens, and they only missed 2 tackles against the New England Patriots. That is not only a significant drop, but that's the level. 2, maybe 4 you can live with on a day-to-day basis and be a good defense. I think this is a game that the defense won the game for them, and I think that's significant in that the missed tackles were a big part of that. It's one thing to give up yards, especially in the run game. But what you saw was the lack of missed tackles meant that while the runs did eat into the defense, they didn't blow it away. It wasn't the free-for-all, and I think that is key to not only build on here, but to hit every week going forward, because that allows you to make some mistakes and yet survive, not cost yourselves the game off of just missing tackles that really are what a professional athlete ought to be doing every week, no matter what. Now, here's a stat that I really like to emphasize because of what it says about the entire defense, not just the pass rush. And that is, for the first time, we got a significant uptick in the percentage of passes that were defeated. Not that the quarterback missed or that the quarterback was pressured on. That was a combination of passes broken up. They got a 7 total, 4 of them coming from Rashad Fenton, who had his best night as a professional. But that is significant in that if your defense is not getting there, if your front 4 in the defense, is not getting there and moving the passer off and disrupting the passes, what you can do is create by adjusting those passes, knocking them out of the air, attacking them in the air, and obviously taking them away. They did get 3 interceptions. For everybody in the secondary, both safeties, who Juan Thornhill started the whole thing off and looked very good, and I think that set the tone in that, especially with Hoyer, they had opportunities to go change the game from the secondary rather than the pass rush. That's something that, again, they're going to have to build on. I think that's going to become even more important when Snead gets back. That is a guy that really has surprised even me, and you guys know how big I was on him pre-draft. He has lived up to this point. In fact, I did go back and rewatch the injury from him last week, and he would have probably had that an interception. He was on the play that he got hurt, nearly had one as well. So I think that's coming. And then they get Bashaud Breeland back. So this number, this 7 broken passes, I expect that to go up, to tell you the truth. They're going to spike here or there, but I want to see a good, even trail of 5+ every single game, and I think this defense is capable of that. You compare that and pair it with the pass rush that I think is going to resurge here in coming weeks, and I think they're going to be in very good business. And I think that we're approaching in the next few weeks, now that a quarter of the season is out of the way, the next quarter of the season will be about attaining balance and having that defense come up closer to being on par, even with the rest of the league, certainly, but in trying to creep up on how good they are compared to the offense. The offense is going to have a couple of trips here and there. The defense had to win this one for them this night, and I think they can do it again. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. Which of these stats is key to you? And what's another one that maybe you think is more important? Make sure that you like, sub, and hit the bell notification so you know when something new comes out. We'll have film for you likely tomorrow if everything comes out on the All-22 all right. If not, we'll delay that a little bit. But that is Chiefs by the numbers for Week 4 against the New England Patriots. Appreciate your time and checking this one out. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.